this 2020, especially what happened in March, April, May, was a truly shocking sort of visuals that we saw of literally millions. I mean, my estimate is about 13 million people went back home one way or the other, and what the trains came in very late. Before that, people were simply walking home. It was literally like this, underbelly of Indian cities, which came into stark sort of relief. And I have actually been working on migration for more than 10 years. And it was so obvious for many of us who work in this field of what is going to happen, when you shut down the Indian railways with a 4-hour notice period. In a pandemic situation where people are scared for their lives as well, what you get is this classic sort of instant flight response. And for me, somebody who works on history, it was very interesting because while I work on migration, for more than 10 years, that was my principal sort of field of research. I had also come across earlier pandemics, like the plague, 1896, 97, and so on. And that lasted for about 20 years in some sense. Influenza, which wiped out more Indians than everyone who died in World War One in 1918.
This is the Spanish flu, as they call it, right?
Spanish flu, as they call it, in 1918. And even back there was this concern, or at least this idea that
Yeah.
migrants will be the first people to leave. And it's interesting to see the responses back then and now. So, for example, in plague in 1896, 97, the same choices had to be made. Do you shut down the railways? Do you shut down transport systems? Or what do you do? And it's very interesting. Those authorities, British colonial authorities, they messed up on various fronts. But I feel they got this basic thing right that
Yeah.
migration in India is so circular. People lead these two lives, one foot in the city and one foot in the village.
Right.
And that's been constant for more than 100 years. And we can talk, about why this happens. But it's very circular. So people come to Indian cities to make money. So that's the cities provide economic security, but it's the village which provides the social security. Where the family is there, where even if you want to access, pension, not pension, if you want to access ration, subsidized food, everything in India is tied to your place of birth. So the minute you move, you lose access to all this, cheap food, cheap healthcare, free education, etc. All the public service in India, unfortunately, tied to where you're born. So that's a major handicap in public policies in India. So as a result, what you see is that if a person's income dries up in the city, what is a person going to do? The most rational response is to go back home. And that's precisely what people started to do, in 1897, and that's precisely what people did in 2020.
Right.
Interestingly, the British actually arranged special trains for people to go back.
Yeah.
And their logic was very simple, saying that even if we want to, prevent the spread of the virus, there is no way we can physically shut down internal migration. So you can shut down international migration by just shutting off the ports, like we shut off our airports. Shutting down air travel is much simpler than shutting down land-based travel because even if you shut down the railways, people can walk, and it's much more fluid and so on. Yeah. And we've seen this in China also shut down the railways in 1911 when the plague hit there, and the same thing happened. People walked back home and died walking back home in the harsh winter.
Brutal.
So broadly the lesson seemed to be that you have to take into account, obviously one has to have some sort of a lockdown, some sort of planning to contain the virus.
Yeah.
But the way I think we did it was very, very, unplanned, and in a way futile because 2 months later, we, anyway sent our migrants back home in those special trains, Shramik trains, at a time when actually the infection spread was much higher, right? So it kind of defeated the original purpose. So what I think a lot of people in our world were saying on the day of the lockdown, March 24th, was that, give some time, give 1 week, let these people go back home because they're going to have to. The other thing is, if you're not letting them go home, immediately announce a massive relief package of free food, rental waiver, etc. Unfortunately, there was nothing in that lockdown speech.
Which is a basic human thing to do.
Exactly, yeah. And there was absolutely nothing in that lockdown speech, which I've read many times now,